All righty then. I'll go with the opening words, which were written by Seamus Henney. Human beings suffer. They torture one another, they get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong, inflicted or endured. The innocent and gowls beat on their bars together. Hunger striker's father stands in the graveyard dumb. The police widow in veils faints at the funeral home. History says, don't hope. Don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed for tidal wave of justice can rise up and hope in history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. Call the miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing double take of feeling. If there's a fire on the mountain or lightning and storm and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of a new life at its term. It means once in a lifetime that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. Kimmy will light the chalice. And I will read the chalice lighting, which was written by the Reverend Scott Taylor, Building the Justice We Long For. May this flame cast its light towards better days, reminding us that the future is not simply a place we are going, but a place we are creating. The path of new possibilities will not be found, but made. The justice we long for does not sit at the end of an inevitable arc. It lies in the bending. That is ours to do. A new world is waiting to be built. May our time together light the way. Now I have to look at what I got going here. Hymn. The hymn is number 168, which is one more step. So if you all mute, so we all don't clash with one another, and Kim and I will sing. And of course, I just told her that because so that's what we're going to do. So it's number 168 for those of you who have the hymnal at home. And again, it is one more step. And we'll do, what do you want to do? Step and prayer? Sure. All right, we'll do the first and third. So you don't have to listen to us the whole time. Ready? One more step. We will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step. One more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. Thank you. The theme for the month of February is justice and equality. And with that in mind, student Rabbi Ally Karpel will now speak to us about pursuers of justice. Thank you, Ally.
Thank you. It's once again so good to see everyone. In the days following the death of former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the evening of Rosh Hashanah in 2020, it came to light that one of the most prominent pieces of art in the late justice's chambers was a large painting of 3 Hebrew words, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue. when 2 decades prior, Justice Ginsburg was asked to contribute to a book called I Am Jewish, Personal Reflections Inspired by the Last Words of Daniel Pearl, a collection of essays from 300 prominent Jewish personalities on what the words I am Jewish meant to them. The notorious RBG responded with the same text, stating, I say who I am in certain visible signs. This command from Deuteronomy appears in artwork, in Hebrew letters, on 3 walls and a table in my chamber. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, shalt thou pursue. They are ever-present reminders to me of what judges must do. These 3 words, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, are among some of the most oft-quoted texts in progressive Jewish communities today. You can find the quote everywhere, from synagogue facades to sanctuary artwork, to t-shirts and tote bags at camps, youth groups, and Jewish conferences alike. For many Jews of all ages and backgrounds, these Deuteronomic words, more than any other biblical one-liner, serve as both a central tenet of our Jewish expression and a reminder of our joint responsibility to one another in which each of us is obligated because of our shared humanity. Now, before I continue, a brief language lesson. In Hebrew, there are several ways to convey the English word justice. In a strictly legal sense, the Torah, as well as the Mishnah and Talmud, our rabbinic texts, favor the use of mishpat. In fact, this week, Jews around the world are reading Parshat Mishpatim, the Torah portion, Mishpatim, which consists of 118 verses, 53 mitzvot or commandments, laws with which the newly liberated Israelites must follow to create a just, ethical, and equitable society. These mishpatim include criminal penalties for murder, kidnapping, assault, civil laws pertaining to the redress of damages, granting of loans, laws for keeping kosher and observing Shabbat. But there are also laws warning not to subvert the rights of the needy, to care for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger, those at the margins of society, those who are often ignored, or worse, taken advantage of. This last category of legislation, then, is not just mishpat, law, but tzedek, justice. Tzedek comes from a different Hebrew root entirely. The Hebrew letters sadik, dalit, kuf, which mean righteousness. Tzedek, then, is not just the adjudication of the law. It is justice that is rooted in morality. In his renowned book, The Prophets, 20th century rabbi, theologian, and civil rights leader Abraham Joshua Heschel explains the difference between law and justice as such. It seems that justice is a mode of action, righteousness a quality of the person. Justice is strict and exact, giving each person their due. Righteousness implies benevolence, kindness, and generosity. Justice is a form, a state of equilibrium. Righteousness has a substantive associated meaning. Justice may be legal. Righteousness is associated with a burning compassion for the oppressed. With this in mind, it might be more accurate to translate the maxim justice, tzedek, tzedek tirdof, as righteousness, righteousness shall you pursue. Rabbi Heschel's words remind me of a cartoon I often use with my 7th grade Sunday school class to teach about the difference between equality, equity, and justice. The cartoon depicts 3 individuals attempting to watch a baseball game. The individuals stand behind a tall fence, and not everyone can see the game. The panel depicting equality shows a box for each individual, a stepping stool to help peer over the fence. Each person receives the same supports, the same benefits. This is equality. But as you can see, there is still a disproportionate level of access. The tallest person can see and the shortest person cannot. With equity, each person gets what they need according to their own individual needs. Everyone gets something different, but everyone gets what they need. Yet true justice would be to eliminate the barrier altogether. The idea that tzedek is a form of justice that is rooted in righteousness and compassion, a desire to eliminate barriers to access, to participation in society, and a desire to move beyond short-term fixes in favor of long-term change is something that is undoubtedly familiar to Unitarian Universalist ears. However, I'm sure we all know that the road from justice to peace is a long and winding one. Long-term change takes investment, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually as well. A couple of summers ago, I participated in a human rights fellowship through an organization called JUUF, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights. JUUF, whose name derives from one of the shofar sounds blasted on Rosh Hashanah, a cry beckoning us to wake up and take action, runs a number of programs for clergy and aspiring clergy alike. And I knew from the moment I was accepted into the fellowship, it would be a rich summer of learning. As part of the fellowship, I spent 2 days a week learning with other rabbinical students, each from a different denomination of Judaism on Zoom. Each week, we unpacked a different archetypal tension that was likely to arise in our justice work. We explored the tension between pride versus humility, debated which was greater, study or action, and unpacked the tension between tzedek and shalom, peace. As we began our text study, much of the conversation centered around the risks that we assume as clergy from speaking about justice from the pulpit. The pushback we might get from congregants whose views differ from our own. Worse, we could unintentionally alienate or even push folks away from wanting to be a part of our sacred spaces. We shared how much of our desire to be clergy stemmed from a desire to provide healing and comfort, to walk with folks through their lives in moments of pain and joy, and that takes trust that is difficult to repair once it is broken. However, as the conversation continued, we kept circling back to the risks of not speaking about justice from the pulpit in the name of keeping the peace. One of my wise classmates reminded us that in a 1956 sermon from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., entitled "When Peace Becomes Obnoxious," Dr. King wrote a few weeks before the expulsion of Atherine Lucy, the first Black student to attend the University of Alabama from her college campus, quote, "A few weeks ago, a federal judge handed down an edict which stated in substance that the University of Alabama could no longer deny admission to persons because of their race. As soon as Atherine Lucy walked on the campus, a group of spoiled students began threatening her on every hand. Crosses were burned, eggs and bricks were thrown at her. The mob jumped on top of the car in which she was riding. Finally, the president and trustees of the University of Alabama asked Atherine to leave for her own safety and for the safety of the university. The next day, after Atherine was dismissed, the local paper came out with the headline, "Things are quiet in Tuscaloosa today. There is peace on the campus of the University of Alabama." Yes, Dr. King said, things are quiet in Tuscaloosa. Yes, there was peace on the campus, but it was peace at a great price. He continued, Peace is not merely the absence of some negative force, war, tension, confusion, but it is the presence of a positive force, justice, goodwill, humanity. True peace is the presence of justice. I cannot think of a better framework for each of us to consider this month as we continue to lean into the February Soul Matters theme of justice and equity. In his 1968 speech, Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution, given at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., Dr. King famously stated, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Friends, I might add to Dr. King's statement, the arc of the moral universe bends, but only if we bend it that way. Deuteronomy teaches us this with tirdof, pursue. May we be pursuers of justice and pursuers of peace, and may our pursuits be answered by a world in which we all may thrive.
I will conclude with a closing of Sending the Flame. Justice is Our Prayer by the Reverend Rebecca Savage. We have come to the end of our service, but not our calling in the world. May we close our time together with a humble reminder that justice and equity are our practices to embrace. Each day, every day, we are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible when justice and equity ground us in all that we do. May we go forth with the light and warmth of this chalice in our hearts until we are together again. Amen. Namaste. May it be so. So, folks, if you mute, and we will sing From You I Receive. Ready? From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.